Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into my tarot channel. My name is Paulina, and I had one last message for today that came through, and it is from your higher self about someone who is constantly belittling you or has constantly belittled you. So it's about that dynamic, and it's a quick reading. Yeah, some really tough emotions here. This person is not well mentally. It's not about you, but it is an energy that you want to protect yourself from. Research shows that continued exposure to emotional or psychological abuse can affect the body and nervous system and the brain in several detrimental ways over time. So removing yourself from being in the vicinity of this person, setting limits like, you know what, you can't talk to me like that, or just silence. Like, I don't like the silent treatment. I think it's a cruel way to deal with people, and it creates reactive abuse because then the person is upset, and it's like talking to an empty well when you're trying to speak with someone and they won't talk to you, especially if there's been like a recent interaction or something that was upsetting. Then it's like, oh, you're the bad guy, and I really hate that, and I don't want that for you. Neither does your higher self. So I'm not saying, so if I suggest going silent with this person, but you might want to clarify first, like, oh, you know what, I see that this is how you're interacting. For me, it's really negative, and this is just not okay for me anymore. You know, as we grow, as we age and individuate in our lives, there may be relationships that we shed, that a person's way of treating us or their way of relating is no longer conducive to our path and our growth in life. I don't know if you've heard of the Kabbalah tree. That's coming to mind right now. I don't know every section, but it's like the tree of life, and it has I think it's 8 sections, maybe more than that, maybe 13. But it's like really these like sectors of life, and this person doesn't belong in any sector of your life anymore, and you might want to just really like settle in that finalness, because sometimes it can be easier to hear it from someone else or harder to hear from somebody else. The belittling, there was also like gaslighting, and like I'm seeing like a lot of like lying and deception, and just like actions done to make you feel less than from this person. And it's really not okay. And I think it's been going on a long time, maybe since childhood, honestly. Maybe this is a relative, a toxic relative, a toxic friend, toxic lover. It doesn't matter. This reading is about you standing up for yourself. That doesn't mean you have to get in some big conflict with them and huff and puff and get angry. You could just say, although sometimes people do lose their tempers if they're pushed. Yes, that can happen, and that's okay. But we want to like think of our goals in this situation. We don't want to be exposed anymore to someone who has no filter, says cruel things, and won't apologize. There is a way of interacting where I think, I mentioned it before, just like saying a jab or a cruel remark, and then when the other person's upset, making them the bad guy. It's called reactive abuse. And I think that the collective needs to hear this too, not just the person. I mean, I hope more than one person watches this, but like, I did a video about healing from abuse. It got very intense because I did some somatic body work, and I had like a release response at the end. If you want to watch that, it's interesting. But because we did some EFT in that video. But this video is more cerebral. It's not as embodied or somatic. It's more like giving you the skills to see yourself clearly. There's a really lovely, I don't know why this is coming to mind, but it seems really important to say. So this is about your perception of yourself too, that you not that you put up with this, but that you let this person continue treating you this way. I think maybe you thought, this makes them feel good to treat me this way, and they have nothing else going on, so I'll just let them treat them this way. But really, we got to pull it back and like have some self-respect for ourselves and self-esteem and self-likinghood, and that can take time. There's a really beautiful story, a Native American tale called The Rough-Faced Girl. It was a book when I was younger, and it really stuck with me my whole life, especially because I'll tell you why in a second, but it's about it's really a Cinderella Native American story, and it had like amazing illustrations. It was a children's book when I was a kid, and it's about a girl who has like scars all over her face from like cleaning the ashes for her family, and or like just like rough stuff on her face from that. And she has these cruel sisters who like make fun of her, these stepsisters, and they're mean. And then the father is kind of passive and doesn't really care what's happening. And there's this like, and she's living this life of slavery where she feels horrible about herself. But then there's this like tell in the land of this like invisible being that is like actually a magical like prince, and like will only like show himself to like someone true of heart or pure of heart or something like that. And then the sisters get all dressed up to go, and they're like, we're gonna meet him and make him fall in love with us, and they're like really vile, and they like steal her like jewels or whatever, and like just go, and he doesn't like them. And then he ends up liking the rough-faced girl. I forget how they meet. Oh, I think she still wants to go, and she puts on shells, and they make fun of her, and she wants to have a chance at meeting the invisible being. And she goes, and he can see that she's pure of heart, and then he sees her beauty, and she becomes beautiful. And it turns out that she always was beautiful. It was just the perception of self that she had, and the perception that others had of her that she was listening to. So the story is really about, and then also the invisible being becomes visible to her. So it's really about opening the heart space and not listening to other people's negative perceptions of us, so that we can see ourselves as God wants us to see us. We are all made in God's image. We are all made, He doesn't make mistakes. So self-acceptance is really affirming God's choice to make you as you are. And yeah, I want you to maybe like give yourself a hug right now, because, you know, the sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I also saw, like, I did see a vision today while I was walking in the woods. I saw sticks laid in certain ways, and it was making me think of, not to be morose, but like bodies stacked, and just wartime. That's like a really classic wartime image from really any war. And like, I'm bringing that up because I think there's a lot of you know, in parts in IFS therapy, we talk about parts work, which is the idea that the self is fragmented because of trauma, and there's sections of ourselves that we've hidden. There's protector parts that are hiding intimate, more vulnerable parts, and becoming aware of all these parts is how we integrate the self. It's a really cool modality. But so in IFS, why am I bringing up IFS? Because I think that it's important to look at that part that hates the self. You know, is it even you? Is it some story you internalized to fit in with a group? Because when we can see ourselves through the eyes of the divine, we can remove judgment and see that to judge ourselves is actually a sin. I'm going to say that. To be cruel to ourselves, to put ourselves down, to let other people abuse us is not acting within, it's not treating ourselves how God saw us. So maybe you can be like the rough-faced girl and change your perception of yourself. And in doing so, you could, change your perception of some other wonderful person and see them fully. Once we see ourselves, we can see others. And once we heal ourselves, the mission then becomes to heal the world.